Hello, y'all, folks. It is 2023 when this movie comes out, Tinentina, not when this video comes out on YouTube. It is a Spanish film. It is based on a short film that was created 10 years earlier by the same director. It stars different people. The actors of note here are Milena Smit, Jaime Lorendo, Carlos Gonzalez Moroyan, and Anastasia Russo. Those last two play the titular Tinentina, who are a pair of creepy children, very typical creepy horror children. They are a pair of albino twins that get adopted by Lola and Adolfo, a couple that has lost their child in stillbirth, and they have some trouble getting pregnant again and get told that they cannot get pregnant anymore. So they adopt some children. The husband, Adolfo, is initially apprehensive a little bit, but Lola seems to be very excited about them. So, they decide to adopt them, even though the children are much older than they had initially wanted for their adopted children. They adopt them from a convent. And when they get to their new house, they realize that this convent definitely had an impact on these children. They are extremely religious, and they constantly are pushing a little bit for their new adopted parents to also be more religious. And the parents kind of like go a little bit along with that, even though they are very non-religious otherwise. But these kids constantly want to read from the Bible, want to constantly go to church. And the parents just kind of like go along with them, even though the kids also kind of like play disturbing biblically themed games. There's a moment where Lola's dog bites her. The children end up killing the dog to cleanse its soul. And they don't even seem to realize that the dog won't come back to life. They seem to think, oh yeah, of course it will come back to life, just like Jesus. And then the twins end up receiving their first communion, so they're probably like 8 years old or something like that. And there's this classmate of them that bullied them, and the classmate falls into a coma, and Lola starts to suspect that the twins were involved or behind that comatose child. Eventually, it also turns out that the child is dead. Adolfo is just kind of like very skeptical on this and just seems to be much more taken with the children once they are in the house. But Lola kind of like comes off of her initial excitement to have these children, and she gets more and more reason to be kind of like a bit suspicious of these children. At one point later on, she discovers that she is pregnant, and they're like very excited, of course. The children are very excited, the husband is very excited. There's a moment where Tinentina tie Lola up and use a syringe to like inject her to feed the baby with a kind of possibly filled with poison in the syringe. Lola ends up like using a knife to defend herself, which her husband walks in on and is shocked by. Then her water breaks. The baby is born. They are excited. They are enthusiastic. The twins are enthusiastic, and they tell the parents, hey, we want this child to be baptized. We want it to be a Christian child. And the parents are like, no, we don't want to baptize our child. We are not really religious, and we don't want this child to be raised religiously. And on a day that Lola is sitting by the pool, just kind of like dozing off, the children walk into the house, get the baby, go to the pool, and they try to baptize it and almost drown the baby. They hold it underwater for way too long. The child just barely gets rescued, and in retaliation, in punishment, Adolfo takes away the Tinentina's Bible and burns it. And then they decide to return Tin and Tina to the convent. They do not want to be their parents anymore. Kind of understandable in that situation. And while they are at home, Adolfo and Lola and the baby, a house fire breaks out. Adolfo ends up burning to death. Lola loses her baby in all the chaos that is happening, sees her corpse of a burnt husk husband, and just kind of like prays to God to have like a good resolution to all of this. She ends up finding her baby and she runs from the burning house, waking up in a hospital. And she is visited by the head of the convent where they adopted Tin and Tina. And she tells her husband passed away and that he was struck by lightning. She tells Lola that you and your baby have survived, and that is a miracle. Praise God. And Lola asks about where Tin and Tina were, and they were supposedly at the convent. And the head of the convent assures her that they have always been innocent and perfectly fine, and Lola seems to believe her. And the film ends with Lola at her husband's funeral, with Tin and Tina next to her, and seemingly being a little family again. A single mom with 3 children now. 2 of them very, very creepy and very religious, and probably the 3rd child going to be raised similarly at that point. Concerning. This film seems to have not reviewed very well. It doesn't have a great rating on Rotten Tomatoes, only like 56 points percentages for the critics, and even lower for the audiences. And I don't entirely get why, because looking at this, it is mostly just kind of like more creepy and a little bit slow in some parts perhaps, but it's not super slow, certainly not. And the horror is more psychological, more, hey, these are these creepy children, hey, what are they actually doing? What is actually going on here? There's some religious theming in there. And I'm thinking that a lot of people just didn't get out of this film what they expected to get out of it, what they wanted to get out of it. I think the movie by itself is very good. All of the fire and rain and lightning effects that you get at the end, all of the smoke, is very well done. And until that point, I was just kind of like creeped out, because I could see a lot of the things that happened to just legitimately be happening. Perhaps just not with a pair of albino twins that are 8 years old and just recently got adopted. That is kind of a little bit out of the ordinary, but a lot of us will probably have known some children who were a little bit disturbing, either when we were children or later on. So yeah, I don't agree with those general trend of reviews in this case. And that is why you sometimes just have to watch the movies to see what you think of it. If you want to see whether you agree with the reviews or not. I also didn't look up the reviews for this beforehand either way. I don't tend to do that with horror films as much. And in this case, I would say I recommend you to check this out if any of this sounded interesting to you. Tin and Tina from Spain, 2023.